All right. Well, it's time for questions. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sure somebody must have some questions. Yes.
How do you wire the microphone for this one too?
How did I? Okay, so this is, I have pickups here, and it's basically going into an acoustic exciter, which is designed for an acoustic guitar, and I tuned this exciter. I think I brought up some of the higher frequencies on this, the high blend on this, and then I threw on a couple of plugins as well. Yeah. I wanted the mid-range to come out, so I just brought up some of that, higher mids, and I have a compressor as well. Threshold's really low because this is coming in, it's not coming in balanced, it's coming in unbalanced, so that's just the way that I have it coming into the Traveller. So that's not ideal, but that's what I did. So, yes?
What about latency?
Right, so that's a great question. That was something that was, at the beginning, I was very concerned about. I'm really grateful that this computer, this great MacBook Pro Retina, is very fast. I have it set to 64. I have it set to 64 samples. I have it at 44.1. I tried to run the session at a higher sample rate, and I just didn't like the results, and it just wasn't working very well. So, because I have a lot of virtual instruments on here, and I'm running this on 64-bit, right? I'm not running the 32-bit version. But I have it at 64 samples. I tried 32, and the only problem was that when I was using the stutter edit, it would just conk out. It just couldn't handle 32 bits. So 64 was the best I could do. Because I'm using the Traveller here, I'm only using the essential channels as my inputs. Like, that's it. I'm not adding any, I'm not saying, oh, all in is working and all outs are working. I'm just only using ones that I need, because that will, I guess that will bog down or tax the system if you do that, right? Yeah, and then for the MIDI, should I just go on with this section here? Okay, so let's take a look here with the audio. Yeah, so for the MIDI sync, okay, let me just, I want to show you the Traveller. Or actually, one thing that I had to really tweak, this MIDI clock sync delay for the MPD32, for some reason, I was getting a really bad latency. Yeah, so I pulled it back like minus 234 milliseconds, and it seemed to be acceptable. I mean, there is in general, even when I hear myself, there is a bit of a latency. So what I've had to do is kind of almost like adjust the way that I'm playing the music just to work with it. It's not ideal. I mean, I do notice that, and I think that sometimes it might inhibit some of the performance, but you know, this is the best way to have all these options open, because as you can see on the screen there, I mean, I have a lot of virtual instruments up. I'll just show you. I mean, I haven't even used all of them. I mean, look, I have, you know, I have this Omnisphere, which I showed you already. Then I have the Stylus RMX, which you briefly heard. You know, these loops here. Configuration here as the Omnisphere with the MIDI Learn, except I'm using the Korg Nano to do that. Right. And then, you know, I also have, you know, this Jupiter, which I use later on in the set. It's very moody sounding keyboard. Lots of really great 80s sounds on this thing. And this mini Moog as well. You know. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah.
Please bring them on.
Thanks for your performance. It was really great.
Oh, great.
I'm wondering, what's it like for you to perform in clubs, or what kind of venues do you perform in, and what's it been like to interact with the audience in this kind of setup?
In this kind of setup, I've done I've done different kinds of performances. I used to work with Cirque du Soleil for a while, and I've done more or less one performance in LA that was similar to this, except it was a different version of Ableton. So that would be the point of reference. I had got a very good reception for that, and the audience kind of grooves on the music, but I think that at times it's kind of an unusual sound, I think. So it's not really dance music, but it's not really rock music as well. It's kind of in between. But I've had a pretty good response with it. Yeah. What did you think?
I thought it was really cool, and I really just it's a whole different experience just to watch what you're doing, you know, especially because we're close and we can see.
Right.
But at least for me, a lot of the experience was like, oh, what's he doing and how's he doing that? So it's a very different type of experience.
Well, I have a tendency to do everything backwards. That's just been my life way of doing things. So I like to, you know, kind of push everything to the limit. So when I found out that Ableton 9 was coming out, and then I've seen this foot controller for a while, and I thought, well, what would be the most effective way to really create this live looping scenario? So this is what I've been working on, and I'm sure the technology is going to get even better to do this even more efficiently. And this is version 1 of this setup, right? So I'm hoping that it's going to be even more integrated as I keep doing it, you know. So yeah.
Which leads to my next question. So if you had to add one instrument to your setup, which would it be?
You sing MIDI or?
No, musical.
Musical, I play flamenco guitar, so I'd want to add that. I think that would really add a lot of, like, I could kind of do like Babel Gilberto kind of sounding stuff with that. That would be fun. Yeah.
And so another question, in creating wise, from where do you start when you arrange a song? One instrument, one idea?
Like live?
No, yeah, in the creative process.
Do you want me to, should I just do one? Okay, let's do that. Okay, let me get my, I'll do one. Do one right now. Okay. So this one I'm going to do that one I said there was a loop, right? Let's do that one. Okay. So in this case, I'll just start with a bass. Get that guy armed. Find you're not the guy inside your mind. Follow the signs, but all you are is left behind. Is this a test or is this for real? Follow the motion that turns the wheel. Don't give up. Na 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 na. Don't give up. Na 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 na. Don't give up. Na 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 na. Yeah, so, basically, I have a song form and just build it up that way, right? So, yes.
Are the effects like I noticed when you came in on the clean guitar?
Yeah.
It was kind of drowned out. And
Yeah,
a
I
little,
didn't
and a little washed out. So
yeah, it wasn't loud
Are the
enough.
effects post? You're not. In other words, you're not going through the effects to the channel. They're post record on the channel, right?
The effects are pre actually. It's just that I didn't have the level.
It's built into your setting.
I have it built up. Yeah, I have it built up. I didn't have the level right on that scene. I just kind of threw that together. But yeah, and in fact, that's another good topic of discussion. This is my, distorted guitar sound, and I don't need to carry an amp around, which is really fantastic. I just use Amplitude. I'm actually using Amplitude on all of the electric instruments. It's a really useful plugin, and it's definitely adding the correct noise and coloration that about 80% simulates what an actual guitar sounds like. I mean, it's not that bad, but there's some things that you really can't do. But all considering, if I had to tour, or when I tour on the road with this, it's much easier to tour like this than to have like a stack to carry around. That's just going to cost a lot of money. So.
I was wondering too. Would you mind talking about your vocal effects processing?
Sure.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have. Okay. Isotope Ozone. I also have. This is my secret weapon. It's the PSP micro warmer. These guys, I think they're from the Czech Republic or something like that. Make a really, really good plug-in. It's just adding noise that sounds just like, a compressor.
I'm just curious, since you're using Ozone 5, have you considered using Nectar?
Isotope Nectar? Yeah, I could use that as a way to do even auto tuning live.
Right.
Should I just throw one on right now? I can do that.
I'm just wondering because I'm wondering why you chose Ozone 5 versus something like Nectar.
Well, Nectar doesn't have.
Nectar's really designed for vocal processing.
Yeah, but it doesn't really. I mean, it has a delay on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great, and that would be good. I just didn't want to use. I know that really taxes the computer. Nectar.
Yeah.
I've had problems having that on, so I wanted to get the same kind of, or a similar kind of algorithm that these guys use, except sans the auto tuning and all that. But I mean, that would be a cool idea. I could totally do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just go in here. I also have this echo that I can record, enable, or I can turn on and off. I believe I have it. Is it here? That's it. Yeah, I changed them. Yeah. So I can go like this. It's in bank 2. I can turn the reverb on and off as well for songs that I don't want to have that on. Right. But did you want to see more of exactly how the reverb looks, or? It's just the beauty of the sounds that are. Thank you.
Well, were there some vocals pre-recorded in the TV tracks?
Yes.
That you left in?
Yes.
So that's probably what you were hearing.
Yes.
They
No,
were
it was me. Come on. Give me some credit here. Yeah, this track has a bunch of that, over here. I'll just. No, that was actually done in Digital Performer. This is one of the reasons why I like it, and I just time stretched everything. I had 6 different layers, and then I doubled those layers up, and then I matched all the words by using time stretching and cutting and snipping things up. And then I didn't use Melodyne because that kind of, to me, that sometimes kills some of it. So I used a very subtle pitch correction a tool, like a pencil tool, just to make sure that the wobble wasn't that apparent. So at least it would keep the wobble from my pitch, the actual oscillation of my pitch from the vibrato. Yeah. The time stretching in Digital Performer, if you stretch it too far, will actually create that kind of wobble, and that's where something like Melodyne really shines because you can just keep going and it still sounds really good. Yes.
I just noticed you are warping your vocal, your track. Sorry.
Yeah, this is great that I brought this up. I wanted to talk about this earlier. So I warped the track, and I also pitched it down -1.
Okay, yeah.
Because when I recorded the track, it goes feel it in your heart. That's like the highest, like clearest thing, but it's actually one note. So it's feel it in your. So I didn't want to go falsetto.
Yep.
So I figured I could use. This is why Ableton's great. You can just pitch it down and totally do.
So would you like to spend a word on the algorithm type you use to warp the track? Why maybe go pro instead of complex instead of? I mean, you tried everything, and this is the one.
This sounded the best, and plus, like,
okay.
I used to have trouble with this when I had my other computer, and then I would have to play around with it because my computer would crash. It would take too much power to process the information. But with one of these, I haven't. I mean, it hasn't run more than like 55, 60%. You know, at 64 sample. You know.
Right. I was going to say, and that's at 64-bit. Right?
Yeah.
You're using the 64-bit.
I'm using 64-bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can really maximize your processing power that way.
And I have 16 gigs of RAM in there, so I mean, you know, I still haven't loaded up everything. You know, there's so much more that I could add to that.
Would you mind talking about your, like when you have a show?
Yeah.
Your setup process, how you prepare when you get to the show, how you make sure that you have everything?
Basically, I always have my stuff set up in my studio, like, as it's going to be here. You know, maybe a slightly different sort of geographical position, but more or less like this. So I just take everything like apart. And for example, like with this, you know, USB cable, I'll actually wrap it around the actual unit so that it doesn't go. Or like, seriously, you know, and I'll have an extra in my bag, maybe 2. Or like, for example, the power supplies to these DIs, I actually keep the supply plugged into the DI itself and wrap it around so that I don't lose that. Because that's the kind of stuff you always lose. It's those things. That one cable is totally going to be that. Yeah, I mean, and it takes me probably about an hour to really set this stuff up. You know, make sure that it's doing the right thing, and then check the room balance as well, because that's going to also be a factor. But for the most part, I mean, I'm using in-ear monitors, and that, you know, the mix has to sit well within these in-ears first, and then any kind of variation would probably have to do with the lower frequencies, because you really, I mean, you can get it. These are pretty good, but you're not moving the same amount of air. I mean, you know, it's just kind of it's relative, you know, to the space between the ear canal and your eardrum and all of that. So what you want to hear what the room sounds like. So then I might do some adjustment, maybe, you know, if the room was really, really like loud, or if there was a problem with the room, or if there was like a, you know, I might even just throw an EQ at the very end here and then just deal with it that way.
The beauty here is that you've got the whole mix. It's all pre-configured, and you're just sending a stereo mix out to the house. Vocal, everything just goes straight out.
Yeah.
And you're taking your own in-ear monitor off of your system as well.
Yeah, and
so regardless of what happens out in the house, you can always hear yourself and what's going on, but you don't necessarily hear what's going on in the house if something changes, for example, on the front of house mix, right?
No, I can't know that. Yeah. And now and
that's probably for the best.
Well, maybe, but I mean, like, I can also, in an alternative scenario, I could send out like groups. Like I could have like just my bed track come out of channel 3 and 4 of my Traveller, and then my guitars could come out of channel 5 and 6, or just channel 5 or whatever, and then I could have my vocals come out of channel 7 of the Traveller, and then, you know, our engineer over there could mix it for the house. I could do that as well. That's possible. Just depending.
That's if you really trust the engineer to do a good mix for you, huh?
Yes. That's if I trust. Yeah, if I trust that. But otherwise, I mean, this scenario has worked pretty well. So I kind of like it. It's a lot easier to deal with and to manage. And
I think the only thing I would question is, like you said earlier, on your TV tracks, they're unmastered,
right?
And that you kind of do your own pseudo mastering chain on them live in Ableton. I would think if you were touring this, you would want to master those properly and then just drop them in. I mean, this is just my take
Okay.
on it, because that way you're guaranteed of them sounding really fat and full
Right.
and rich, and then the only variables are what you're controlling on the stage. I've talked to lots of guys
Sure.
doing these, and pretty much the consensus I've heard in that respect is that I absolutely master my tracks ahead of time, because that's kind of one of the differentiating factors, especially when you're playing out of Ableton.
Right.
One of the criticisms that I've heard a lot is that the audiophile quality isn't there for people, and so they kind of are like, it just doesn't sound as good as coming out of Tractor or CDJs or something like that.
No, that's a good point. It's also maybe because I have like a tendency to not be happy with how something sounds, so I don't want it to be fixed. I want it to. So this might be, but definitely that is a good point. It could probably that would be one less plugin to deal with too.
That too. Yeah.
Why not? Sure, definitely. Yeah. Let's see. What else is there in here that you would like to take a look at? Okay.
Does it make you nervous to have this many variables in a performance
Yes.
situation?
Yes. In fact, a couple of things happened today. Like this unplugged once. For example, I don't know how. I want to watch the playback, but I don't know how my first track played again. And then I decided to just add a gesture there because it was just like, whoa, how did that even happen? So I said, okay, I'll just go with that and just
well, you have to, right?
You have to, right? So there's I haven't even counted, but I'm sure there's more than 35, 40 different variables going on at the same time. So it's a lot, and yeah, I've practiced this enough to feel more comfortable with it. I wish that there would be some kind of like. One thing I want to design is maybe something I can have as a pick guard that I can control right here. I think that would be really ideal for what I'm doing here.
As opposed to foots?
In addition to foot.
In addition
but
to
then
foot.
as opposed to like this. Like get rid of this, and then everything that this does would be done here. That kind of thing.
So that would be like the stutter edits and that kind of thing? Or
that too. Both of those. The stutter, yeah, you could do all the edits, here, like some of the edits here. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and then the drum stuff, it's good to have something larger to play on because you want to have something that's more surface area, Yeah.
Have you done this with other performers playing with you? Where you're not the only one performer?
Once, this was with John Legend's music director, Swiss Chris. We did one performance in Brooklyn. It was not this computer. It was a lot simpler. It was just basically me playing a couple of loops and him jamming back. Like it was just back and forth. It was all. I mean, you could have even done that with a loop pedal. It was very experimental. It was just when I think it was Ableton 4. Like it was like way back when. And it was frustrating because it wasn't really working all the time. Sometimes there was problems. So. But
what are the in-ear monitors that you're using? Tell us a little bit more about
Futuresonics.
those.
I have two sets. I have Ultimate Ears and Futuresonics. These are the ones that Cirque du Soleil gave me. They're a little bit bass heavy. They're very durable, and they're. I mean, I had to get my ear canals, molded and. You get used to them. What the advantage is if you have like a large place that you're playing in and it's very loud, that actually can save your ears because you can just set it to whatever level you need. So I am not going to go deaf, that's for sure. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it.
It's worth it also not only for doing live performance, but let's just say you have to mix something and you have to get it done tomorrow morning, and for some reason where you live you can't turn your monitors on, which I'm not suggesting that you should do your mixes this way. I'm saying that's like last resort. This is probably the next best thing to I find these better than headphones. That's what I think. I think that some headphones, even the cushions kind of get worn out on the headphones. They're designed. Some headphones are designed to cup. Others are designed to not cup, and if your headphone is not exactly brand new, then it's not going to be exactly the spec that the company made. So you might be losing some, resistance of some sort. So I'd prefer to use this. You had a question? Yeah.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. This is pretty inspiring.
Oh,
but
cool.
my
Thanks.
question is more about you and your music.
Okay.
What did you get started with in terms of instruments?
Okay.
And what was your kind of progression, whatnot?
Okay. So I started playing piano, and I quit piano lessons when I wanted to learn the song "Beat It," and my teacher told me that that's not music. And I said, but I want to learn how to play it. Come on, I like Michael Jackson. It's good. So I was very disappointed. But then what happened was my brother had a guitar, and so I started playing that because we had a Beatles book, and you could read all those chords and such, and there's really good music. So I started just learning the chord diagrams, and then I got into jazz guitar and all of that. And then in my 20s, I decided to start looking at some of my roots. I'm part Italian, part Persian, and this instrument's Persian, and it's a Silk Road instrument. It's a very old instrument, and I wanted to learn something that was unique, and I had heard someone play this instrument, so I decided that I would start studying it. And I would really say that this instrument opened up a lot of my awareness of music. First of all, just tuning it. Sitting there tuning it, you have to have patience. You can tune this in a variety of ways. I've tuned this to equal temperament, which is how we tune, our keys. But you could tune this to just intonation. You could use the Maqam scale, which is the Middle Eastern scale, which means that your do is do, but then re would be like a little bit between a minor second, and it's not so equal, right? So it's really off for what we're used to, right? I've tuned it a variety of ways. When I studied this instrument, I used that system. But then later I went to India, and in India they don't really tune things that way. They use our equal temperament, so then I started tuning it that way. So my musical experience has started on piano, then mostly on this, and then for some crazy reason I decided to start learning the cello, and bass is not really, it's almost the same as playing guitar, so I don't really find that much of a giant leap, but yeah. So 5-string bass, yeah, it's got a low B, yeah. So yes.
How many strings is your Santur?
72 strings. So yeah, that's not slouch on that one. So 72 strings, and what's really cool about it is that it kind of has like something happening when you play it. I can't really describe this. Like almost like it's the waves are dancing over it. Like when I play it, I feel like this sort of like something is dancing over it. It's the only instrument that I play that it's very trippy. Yeah, it really is. It just is. Yeah.
Does it have a second layer of chord like the sitar, so maybe sympathetic resonance?
No. The sympathetic effect is occurring because there's 3 octaves, right? So you have this A, right? This A, and then there's a bridge here that basically creates the higher octave. Okay, so this A on the bottom is just basically 4 set of strings that only play that note. But on this side of the instrument, you're much like the monochord that Pythagoras was using. This is basically similar to that, yeah.
So related to the kind of scale you use when you perform, like switching from the more rock part, from the more ethnic part, I think there must be.
Yeah, this was a problem at Cirque. Basically, this only, you can only tune one scale to this, and to get it to tune another scale, you're taking a big risk. So you need multiple Santours to do other scales. I would never drop or change a tuning in halfway through a show with this. Forget about it. You just lose the whole thing.
So you play mainly one key? Is that
This instrument's just one key. Just A minor. Yeah, I'm only doing that.
Kind of like the harmonica, the blues harmonicas.
Yeah. I mean, there are guys that they change 1 or 2 notes, but I find that every time I do that, then it's, oh no, something's going to happen. Yeah, and then it'll just, especially since I'm also, see, if you're playing this with an acoustic instrument and you're the only instrument, that's fine if something goes out a little bit. But when I have all of these and then I play a synth sound and then all of it, oh, that would be like a nightmare. Yeah. Yeah.